Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And amongst all the amazing Black Friday events and sales and deals, we have the Tier 3 Selector in the limited pass, as well as the Transcended Selector given to your inbox in the gift tab, just given to players for logging in. And so I usually cover these in separate videos, but since a lot of the information is the same as it was 6 months ago when we got a Tier 3 Selector and a Transcended Selector for the anniversary, I'm actually going to cover them in the same video. So do not get alarmed, but this is going to be a combo Tier 3 and Transcended Selector guide. So we're going to try and split it into both. I'm not going to go into detail about every single character, but I've already pre-ranked them, so you can just pause the video and look. If you want deeper analysis, you can continue to watch the video, and of course, if you just want to support the channel, you can leave the video on as well. I really appreciate that. But starting with the Tier 3 list, because I think for a large majority, if not all players, the Tier 3 list is much stronger and much better than the Transcended list. Unfortunately, Transcended characters just don't hit the same as Tier 3 characters. Kicking it off, remember these characters are only Tier 3, and it can be a little bit difficult to remember a character that you Tier 4'd a long time ago. How good were they at Tier 3? But yeah, Storm being number 1 is no brainer here, because on top of being a really good Tier 3 and having good damage before Tier 4, she also has an amazing support buff. Very few characters, Cyclops the only other one on this list, can do that and have that sort of dual role where they can be a high DPS and they can be a strong support or leadership, and they can do it at Tier 3 and Tier 4. So yeah, Storm takes the cake there. Ghost Rider and Miles not far behind, despite not really having leaderships besides the self-buffing. Remember, Ghost Rider does self-buff on his lead if you don't have a better lead for him when you can convert at Tier 4, but before Tier 4, you're not converting the flame resist, so it's not going to be as good. And then Miles is just still a really good speed villain. At Tier 3 with the self-buffing lead is quite nice. But these would be my 3 for the S tier, the sort of the top of that Tier 3 ladder. You could probably move Miles down here. You could probably just put Ghost Rider here. The reason why Ghost Rider gets a nod is because he's also a good striker. He also has PvP value, and he's one of the few characters on this list, period, that has any PvP value. And as you can see when we scroll down, most of the other ones that you would associate with PvP value, like Spider-Man, or maybe even like to a lesser extent Daredevil and Punisher, they're very weak pre-Tier 4. They really need the Tier 4 to get the extra buffs, to get the extra stats, to even hang. And that's just a thing in general in PvP. But Ghost Rider, because of the immortality, he can get away with a lot more. Moving on to the A tier, we do have Thor and Venom. Again, it's your opinion whether you'd put these characters ahead of each other or not. But remember, Venom is an absolutely potent Tier 3. I actually would maybe do this. He just hits super hard at Tier 3. Very, very strong there. Hulk is not bad at all. Gwenpool's very good because she gets that extra pierce on her uniform. Loki is nice because of that 5th skill burst, and honestly, his Tier 4 kind of sucks. Black Widow is a decent striker, and she has a good artifact, although she can't really scale it, but pre-Tier 4. Captain America, really because of the zombie tags. Same thing with Captain Marvel here. If it wasn't for the zombie tags, they would honestly not be an A tier. And then Miss Marvel, just because she's pretty easy to play, and right now she is the best alternative, free-to-play alternative to Black Bolt for that one ABL day of Inhumans. So she may not be the strongest, but she's quite valuable given that you don't have to invest in a seasonal uniform. But yeah, she also has a very easy rotation. With supports, it's pretty straightforward. I just tried to rank them from the most useful to the least useful. I do have a bias towards Hela. I admit that. If I take my bias away, she probably lands somewhere around here. But yeah, Morgan, Shuri, Sin, all excellent, very, very strong. Shuri takes the cake because she's not paywall, not seasonal. Taskmaster is also very, very good. Honestly, you could put Taskmaster here and put Hela there, and then it just goes down from there, and you get less and less value until you get to War Machine, Sam Wilson, and Chasm. Keep in mind for Sam Wilson, if you switch over to his hero uniform from Brave New World, he probably goes down here. He's just not very strong pre-Tier 4. He's also not very strong Tier 4, so you're not really getting much, and I think he is actually better served, has more value as a zombie support. And then not too much to say about C tier and D tier. D tier in particular, these are characters that cannot go to Tier 4, and I know it's not a Tier 4 selector, it's a Tier 3 selector, but it still matters if you can then transition them to Tier 4, right? Like some of these characters are not very good at Tier 4 either, like Shang-Chi, take my word for it, but at least they can go that far. At least they have that value, right? And so I put Rogue here at the top because you can Tier 4 her. She gains a lot from her Tier 4, she gains the extra damage ability, and then she would skyrocket up. But at Tier 3, I think some of these characters struggle. Particularly, we forget characters like Black Bolt doesn't have access to the final damage because that's on his Tier 4. So he really does struggle pre-Tier 4 to hit those milestones and do that big time primo damage. So yeah, I would just focus on the S tier and the supports. With the A tier, I would only go so far as like the 5th or the 6th slot. Honestly, after Loki, the value is quite questionable, and I think a more aggressive list could put Black Widow, Cap, Captain Marvel, and Miss Marvel down in C tier with Rogue. Just because, again, tier 3s just don't do as much as the rest of the roster does these days. So that is the ranking, in my opinion, for the tier 3 selector. And you can take it as 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then Venom would be 4th, 5th, 6th on Thor, 7, 8, 9, 10 on Black Widow. So about the first 9 are quite good. And then, of course, getting into the supports, I would probably, after Gwenpool, I would probably start counting the supports maybe even sooner, because the supports at tier 3 are super valuable. So honestly, if you have the first 6 or so, I would strongly consider picking up one of the top 5 supports if you don't have any of them, but that's just me. Moving along to the Transcended list. So this is the Transcended Selector. I apologize for not having the new icon for Amadeus Cho, but please try to imagine in your mind the new speed support male hero for Amadeus Cho, putting him squarely in the support category. Similar to the tier 3 ranking, this is going to highlight support characters mostly, and that's where you get a lot of value from the Transcended Selector, is building up extra support type characters. Unfortunately, there's not much more value outside of a bit of niche for ABX ABL, so the rest of the list after supports is honestly skippable. You have a small window for Alliance Conquest, and then you have weak. These are just very weak, very low value, no uniform having, weak tier 3s, or sorry, Transcendeds, no tier 4s. And then we do have, interestingly enough, shout out to Sakro, we do have future value. So remember that data mine that we had 6 months ago, maybe, where it detailed Mephisto, Juggernaut, Ghost Rider, and we've seen since then the Savage Avengers update, Dr. Voodoo, etc. We've seen some of those come to fruition. Well, Domino and Elsa are both on that list, and they have not been touched yet. So it's like Doctor Strange and Coulson and Clea, but, you know, just for what it's worth, I want you to notice that they're there in future value. If not, if future value didn't exist, of course, Elsa would go to the bottom of weak tier. And then Domino's actually decent for Alliance Conquest because of her guard break immunity and her, I believe, counterattack iframe ignore. So she's actually not terrible. She's not great, but she's not terrible in sort of lesser fights where you're fighting, you know, tier 3 versus tier 3, Transcended versus Transcended. But the rest of the Transcended list from the top here, Gamora and Bullseye are far and away the best. So there's like a huge gap after Gamora and Bullseye. And frankly, Dr. Octopus could be down here if you, especially if you have no plans to tier 4 him. He gains so much from tier 4. So this is a bit of an overvaluation of him. Without the tier 4, he's really bad. So just keep that in mind. And then for Nebula, she's not very good because she can't go to tier 4. We know that. But keep in mind that for Nebula, if you don't have Hope and if you didn't invest in Crescent with the seasonal uniform, then Nebula is actually still your best option. It's Nebula or it's Athena. So it's not a very good choice. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, that is the case for Nebula. Not advising anyone to invest in her uniform, but if you already have it and you haven't transcended her, then yeah, she is unfortunately your best option for that one day of ABX where you need, I think it's ABX or ABL, where you need the combat female characters. But yeah, I think you could definitely make this argument here and then just leave it up to Gamora and Bullseye. Gamora and Bullseye just very strong. I think Bullseye gets a little bit more from his tier 4 than Gamora does. Gamora is very good, Transcended 80. She hits really hard, and then she gets better at tier 4. But yeah, these are the two that I would think the most seriously on. And then the first 5 supports. So very similar to the tier 3 list. The first 5 supports are very, very, very good. Mantis is maybe a little bit overvalued here, as is Angel. It had a bit of a PvP skew on it. Now it's a bit more of a PvE skew, but that is how you would rank them. These characters are good enough to see play in, you know, top challenger teams for TBA. So if you're wondering why they're there as supports, it's for the debuff cleanse on Angel, and it's for the damage reduction on Mantis. She gives damage reduction against heroes and villains, so it's quite a nice, you know, net there. Then you have the HP and the reflect reduction. We have, of course, the damage to supervillains on the new Cho. You have the stuff for machine types, which is niche, but it's still pretty good. You have the, obviously, ultra niche defenders, and then it's almost not worth mentioning, but he is technically a support for the Sinister Six, and so it's something to keep in mind. But yeah, And then for AC, I don't play AC, so this is just based on what I know, you know, in my periphery, what I see in my peripherals, and what I hear, bits and pieces, whispers, and things. This might not be a fully exhaustive list. I know some people can still use Drax to some extent, and some of these other characters for some cheesy, like, one-shot kind of thing, or stalling. But in general, I would say, you know, if you have all these characters, and then you're choosing between the week, just choose whoever you like the best, man. I don't think you're really going to get much value here. I guess you could say for future value as well, along with Elsa and Domino, is Iron Fist, and then by extension also Luke Cage and Jessica, because we know that Danny Rand and that actor is coming back for the new season of Daredevil, apparently. So that if that, you know, gets some traction, that starts popping off, we might see that having an updated Marvel Future Fight. But again, we also have to, you know, wrestle with the fact that Agatha never got an update, and other Marvel shows never got updates in Marvel Future Fight. So it is a bit hit and miss. It's not guaranteed that every Marvel show is going to have an update in the game. That's kind of been the case lately, so I don't want to get people's hopes up too much. But yeah, that's basically how the list breaks down. I didn't really rank weak, to be honest with you. I didn't rank it within. I just ranked AC, support, and ABX/ABL. So those three categories are ranked first to whatever that is, 20th or something like that, or 15th. After that, it's really just up to you and what you think. I guess you could put these guys in here out of respect, but yeah, there's about 15 good options, decent. There's like 10 good options, then there's like 6 more okay options, and then after that, you're looking at some pretty heinous stuff. Please do not buy her seasonal uniform. Silk is not good. It's just that these characters are much worse, and they've never even gotten uniforms. We're talking Warpath, Scorpion, Ulick, Rhino, Lizard. Like, they're just really, really bad. They're just really, they're just bad Shadowline characters. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I guess the character that probably has the most value outside of maybe Drax for some very niche AC content is Malekith, because of the cleanse, debuff cleanse lead. But it's extremely niche, and it's just for like bottom of the barrel AC stuff. We're not talking about anything competitive or anything top tier. So yeah, with that being said, that's my ranking for the tier 3 that's my ranking for the Transcended Selector. That's my ranking one more time for the tier 3 Selector. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are and who you're choosing. Thank you so much for watching the combo video. Smash the like button if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.